take a look here. ¿Cómo vas? How is it going with
kind
your...
of lost.
Okay, let's take a look here. What are your doubts? What do you have
I
questions
have to
about?
start writing.
Okay. Have you taken a look at the link that I provided about forming an argument? Okay.
Yes.
So, have you uploaded your research questions to your Google Drive document?
No.
Okay. So, let's take a look here. All right, so the first thing we need to do is take this information from step one where you say, I want to find out what strategies do they use and why do they prefer these strategies over others, and come up with research questions. Mm-hmm. That is the 2 to 4 research questions that you want to focus on your own research, what you want to investigate. Now, when you come up with your research questions, these research questions are very much linked to step 2 where you ask, I wish to examine. We probably need to be more specific in what you want to examine. I understand you want to examine and teach your strategies, but you might want to be more specific. Do you want to analyze or examine what any materials that they use with those strategies, or the language that they use, like the discourse? Or do you want to analyze or examine the student's behavior to what the teacher implements? Mm-hmm. So the research questions really are going to articulate, I think, more specifically what you want to find out in your research. Have you given this any thought as what the research questions?
Yes.
Okay. Have you uploaded those? Or do you have those with you? Yes. Okay. So would you like to share those? Are they here in the document? Or?
No.
No. Okay. So if you want to share those with me. File is in owner's trash. You will soon permanently lose access to this. Please make
I delete that file because I'm not going to use that. Delete review, so I'm going to start from scratch.
Okay, so can you go ahead then, and you'll have to share the document again. So yes. Can you do that right now, or? Mm-hmm. Okay. Or do you have anything uploaded yet in your? Okay, all right.
I have those 3 so far.
Okay, so what strategies do teachers use to teach pronunciation? What aspects should be taken into consideration when teaching pronunciation? Okay. What materials can they use? All right, so now, were you able to find some primary research articles that link?
Yes, I have them.
Okay. Are you connected right now to the internet?
No, I don't have internet.
Okay. Now, if you want, if it's any easier, Gerardo, you can go back. You don't have to delete this file if you don't want to. If you want to move it back and just replace it, or do you, or are you going to copy again the template, start over from?
Yes.
Okay. Bueno, all right. So if you can do that today, change this link and add your research questions and your thesis statement, and then whatever you have on your literature review if you have something. Okay, so can you talk about a little bit some of the primary research articles?
Yes, most of them, well, all of them are journals. And some of them discuss strategies and some of them discuss aspects to teach pronunciation.
Okay, so can you give me a couple of examples of strategies that they mentioned or that you're thinking about including in your literature review?
Yes. Here's one example. To English students who are studying Spanish.
Okay, and what strategy or strategies did they use? See, the purpose is to investigate what kinds of learning strategies adult students of Spanish. So these are learning strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Are you focusing on learning strategies or teaching strategies?
That's where I'm lost.
Okay. So we have students performing. So let's look at this theory. Alright, so is there a table? Let's see if you can. Let's take a look at the table. They're talking about they identify 22 tactics, learning tactics or strategies. So let's take a look at these. I guess those are. So we have here learning and pronunciation, learning strategies, and these are based on by Oxford. All right, now. So. All right, so I'm assuming you're going to focus, or do you want to focus on Oxford's strategies? Is that?
No.
No.
It's just because I'm still finding resources and.
Because we need to decide now kind of what you want to do. One, if you want to focus on, learning strategies for pronunciation, you'll have to do kind of a synthesis of different strategies and come up with an argument to support a certain number of strategies. Okay, because you can't talk about all of them, but you can't research necessarily all of them. But you need to think of the strategies that are most likely, or the ones that you feel that you are most likely to find here in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll probably need to come up with, in your theory, synthesize learning strategies and decide, which ones you want to focus on, and go through, and so you don't talk about too many of them because there's a lot. So you'll want to focus on the ones that you feel are most important based on certain theoretical concepts. So, for example, social cultural theory, social linguistics, something related to pronunciation. If certain authors are saying that these learning strategies are most important for pronunciation, but try to narrow down those, because even in this article they mention quite a few in this one article, and they're listing them out. But you might try to find articles that talk about pronunciation and certain types of learning strategies or tactics that are very much helpful for pronunciation. All right, so try to mix your theory, your literature review, and build an argument around some theoretical aspect, that is learning theory, and again, cognitivism, social cultural theory, social linguistics, activity theory. These are some of the main theories that are often associated with language learning that you might include, but also talk about the learning strategies as part of that learning theory. So it's kind of theory, learning tactics, and you kind of building an argument around those. So the thing that we have to do is narrow this down, because this is still pretty broad as far as just mentioning learning strategies. So let's say that you choose metacognitive strategies, and you are only focusing on metacognitive learning strategies for pronunciation. Then you can then build an argument around that one subcategory of learning strategies as an example, right? Or it could be some other, maybe it's social affective strategies, or how they feel, or something. You need to try to narrow down, looking at all the literature that you've come across, and try to find the easiest way to do this. One of the easiest ways to narrow down your topic is to try to find other research that you can model, that you can adapt, or even duplicate. And try to get ideas as far as method. We've talked about this before, like what instruments they might use, even the types of participants, even the research questions. You might say, okay, I can adapt these research questions, or I may use exactly the same research questions. Because the 3 research questions you have, I think you're on the right track, we can use those. But again, if we can narrow these down, the research questions, thinking about what you're going to examine in step 2. So specifically, are you looking at the language that they use? So pronunciation. Is the teacher using repetition, synonyms? A lot of the things we talked about in discourse analysis, I think, will help you in thinking about what you're going to examine. If you want to deal with materials, fine, but don't just throw in materials unless you have or are prepared to talk about materials in your literature review. Because here in your research questions, you mentioned 2 things about strategies, and then another question about materials. And so that's fine if you're also prepared to talk about materials, pronunciation, and strategies in the literature review. It may be too much. It may be too many concepts here. So you're always going to be, better off if you can kind of narrow down your topic to something that's not too broad, right? Not too broad that So I think at this point we need to. I'd like for you to think about this and preferably today, upload to your Google Drive your updated document, or go ahead and change the link in Canvas so I can access your document. Add your research questions. Think about your research questions again, thinking about if there's a way to narrow it down just a bit, and add those research questions to your document at the end of the literature review, just before the method section. So just, even though you don't have the literature review, just add your research questions at the very end. And add your thesis statement at the beginning, which is at the end of the introduction. Okay, so it'll be like the research questions and then the thesis statement. So I can see, and that you can see, kind of what is the main point, the main idea of your literature review. And then try to come up with anywhere between 2 to 4 main topics or that you want to talk about. Anywhere
Okay.
between 2 and 4. I think more than 4 would be too many, and I think you'd have at least 2. But think about those main sections or things that you want to discuss. And if you can do that, send me an email or come by and we can talk about it, or I'll look at it to see kind of how you want to organize your work before you start typing, before you start really developing your ideas, so I can kind of see the direction. But I would prefer to see that today if possible. If you can just add your research questions, thesis statement, and the 2 to 4 main topics like headings. It would be kind of like an outline, so I can kind of see what you're thinking about as far as what you want to research. But don't think that you need to throw in materials unless that is something you really want to investigate, thinking about what you want to research, because it would be enough just to look at learning tactics, because even learning tactics is pretty broad. You could see what what the learners are doing. You might even look at the language that the teacher's using. Okay, but again, try to come up with some ideas or find ideas based on primary research articles. Find some examples that are pretty much what you want to do, or hopefully exactly what you want to do if you find it. But that way, I think it'll be easier for you to look at it, because you'll find when you find other primary research articles that they're going to be narrowing this down, that it's a very narrow topic. If you want to look at another example, we can.
I have an example of a lit review.
Okay.
From my topic, so I was thinking of using as a guide.
Okay, but do you have the research also here, or is this a primary research article, or is this theory only?
It's theory.
Okay, because what we need is an example of a primary research article that really hopefully can present some research questions, because this will help you, certainly. Keep this and refer to it, but what we need are some examples of research questions, I think, and to come up with some research questions that are just a little bit more narrow in scope. Okay. Do you have any other examples of primary research articles that relate to pronunciation and strategy?
Yes. Well, I have these 8 so far.
Okay. So let's see. Changing fossilized pronunciation. That might be hard to research. Okay, now here's an example where they are researching fossilized pronunciation, which probably would be a little bit beyond scope or what we have time to do. But they talk about here, they discuss conversational control, monitoring strategies, nonverbal correlates of pronunciation, dictionary use, oral reading, informant use. All of these are possible things that you can research. Not all of them, but you might be able to, get some ideas of things that you can, that you could research for your own, for your own context. Let's see, conversational control, three ideas. Like self-monitor, maybe. Fossilized units generally find it necessary to do some type of conscious monitoring in order to be able ultimately to affect change in everyday conversation. Okay. I mean, you could break it down, for example, verbal and nonverbal strategies. That could be two categories, and then within each of those two categories, you break down in your literature review the specifics.
I mentioned the nonverbal and then I mentioned verbal strategies.
Right, but trying to keep it as much as possible to things that you could research yourself. So you might have a list of things, a list of concepts or strategies that you can observe, but try to keep that group of strategies. There's a balance, right? You don't want to have too many, and you want to have enough, right, that you can find, right? Because if you just do one or two strategies, maybe you won't observe them, right? But so yeah, you want to find that balance, and maybe that's the hard part to do, is find that balance. But you want to try to find or think perhaps one option: verbal, nonverbal, and X amount of strategies for nonverbal, X amount of strategies for verbal, but something that you can make a list and observe and ask yourself, how are we going to measure those strategies? So is it time spent doing an activity, or is it are you just going to measure the frequency, like how many times the teacher initiates or the student verbalizes some sort of behavior that indicates a use of these strategies? So try to choose strategies that are, some strategies may be easier to observe than others. So ask yourself, okay, how am I going to measure these strategies? Can I do it? And if you can, if it's something that you can measure, that's easy, fairly easy to measure, then that would be something to think about. So take a look. Oh, how do I exit out of?
You have to click it right. It has to appear or the core.
Here, okay. EDT. Let's see, different learning differences and strategies. Yeah, so proceedings, let's see, pronunciation learning strategies. In recent years, articles about Okay, now here's a study here that's about the exploratory study focuses exclusively on documenting and categorizing learning strategies used for pronunciation learning. Diaries and interviews were used with 11 adult learners of Spanish to elicit qualitative data about the pronunciation learning strategies they use. Now this sounds like something that you might be able to do, thinking about your participants doing diaries and interviews, and about them recalling the strategies that they use. Analysis of the diaries and interview transcripts revealed 21 specific pronunciation learning tactics. These, along with other pronunciation learning tactics gleaned from a literature review, were condensed into 12 basic pronunciation learning strategies and categorized based on Oxford Strategy. So this to me sounds like something that you can really base it. Maybe it's not exactly, but there's a lot of things here that sound like, and I'm just reading the abstract, but this is something manageable here.
So I can focus it on students rather than teachers. And
Yeah, I mean,
find out
perhaps, yeah. But I think it might be worth at least not ignoring the teacher. So figuring out a way, maybe it's just a couple of interviews with the teacher, maybe observing too in class.
And also interview some students.
Yeah, I think if there's a way to bring in the perspective of the teacher in some way, or at least, consider that.
Yeah.
Consider that. But maybe focus on this. This is the one we're talking about is Peterson, and the title, Pronunciation, Learning Strategies, a first look. This was back in 2000, but yeah, that's it says here 12 basic pronunciation. This study provides evidence of a wider range of specific pronunciation learning techniques that have been proven. Okay. So this sounds like something that you might want to consider. You'll have to look at the learning strategies that they do and see how old are the students and how are they recalling, and to see if this is a situation that you can duplicate here, whether it's an intervention or if it's something that you hopefully can just observe from natural practice. I mean, that would be ideal, but think about how your participants here from this study may or may not provide this information to you. So that's the only thing that you would have to read a little bit deeper into this and see how feasible it is for you to do something. But for me, this sounds like an option because it's a qualitative study. There's interviews and diaries. Now you'll have to find students and or teachers who are willing to do that. But this is, I think, a possibility.
Okay.
Right? I like this one more than the other ones I've seen that are more theoretical and based. Or I think you had a conference proceeding as well that might help you in the theory, but at this point, trying to find the details of your own study and specifically the research questions, try to find primary research articles, and maybe go back to this one article and look at the research questions to see if you can modify or narrow down the research questions that you currently have.
Okay.
Okay, so if possible today, try to go ahead and change the link, add your research questions, thesis statement, and the 2 to 4 main sections. If you're happy with the way you want to organize that, fine. If you have doubts, you're still not sure about the direction of your literature review, send me an email on Canvas or come by my office and we'll discuss it, or I'll look at it and give you some feedback. But you need to start writing now.
Yes.
Now, right, today. So please do that, and if you still have doubts, see me again tomorrow because I want to make sure it's clear now so you can start writing it up. So,
Okay.
all right. So otherwise, if I don't hear from you, then I'll assume everything's you're good, right? So,
Yeah.
but don't if you're confused or lost, don't spend days lost. See me immediately. You don't have to wait until next week for our tutoring session. It's very important that you're not wasting any time progressing. All right. So if you do have doubts, let me know.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.